Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this Futrli webinar with RDA Accountants, and we have Paul here. We're just going to give it a few minutes just to ensure that we have a few more people dropping in. How is it over in Ireland, Paul?
Ireland the sun is shining, which is a massive change. It's about 21 degrees. It's not Italian heat, thank God. But it's lovely and it's coming into the weekend. So
we're nearly there, aren't we?
We're nearly there. All is good. So all is good over here. And economy is doing well. I just seen some figures this morning for it there. Interest rates are killing us all right a little bit here, but other than that, the economy is doing very well.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay. Well, yes, very well. Very well. Exactly the same. We had some obviously news earlier on in the week about inflation rising slower than it had done the previous month, but of course, still tough times ahead. So I think what we're going to go through today with yourself, Paul, will be really, really interesting for a lot of people on the call. For those who have never seen Paul or never met Paul before, Paul is the owner and founder of RDA Accountants, a multi-award-winning practice based over in Ireland and now expanded to the UK, and also former Zero Practice of the Year, Paul. That's correct, isn't it?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
So the aim of today really is
webinar.
And on the Sage webinar. But ultimately, the aim of today is that there's a workshop that you're going to run through a slide deck where it's really going to go into some depth about how you manage to transform your own practice from a compliance to a more advisory focused sort of outlook, and the success really that you've had alongside that moving forward.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it's very personal for me now, this particular webinar, because it goes into my story. And I suppose with everybody putting your story out there, I don't mind doing it at this point because I've done it a bit, but it's an interesting way of looking at everything and putting your own story out there.
Absolutely. Well, without further ado, I guess if you'd like to share your screen and let's kick off, I guess.
Here we go. Everybody see that? Okay, so really I'll start.
Yeah.
The whole concept of this was, how do you double the value of your practice without worrying about the next new trend? For me, that is probably the context of everything. And I know what a lot of people are thinking. Yeah, this is another one of these webinars that people talk about, but it's not really talking, getting into the nitty-gritty of this. Really and truly, that's what I thought when I look back on this journey that I've had. I thought the journey was almost impossible and what we had planned to do at the start. But when you arrive at the other side of this, it's quite staggering to see that this thing actually does work. And it's a simplified system. I'm a simple kind of guy, but it is really a simple version of what of how to change and how to operate your practice slightly differently. I'd encourage everybody here just to stick around till the end of this webinar, because at the end of the webinar, we have an offer, right, for people at the end of the webinar. And that offer, I think, will excite a lot of it. I promise it'll excite the right people. And the people who are really trying to do something slightly different, I think this offer will be very, very prevalent to all these people. For me, when I talk about the accountancy practice, I look back on it based on, I started in accountancy in 1982. I know to look at me, you don't look like it, but that was around the time I started training. When I left school, I went straight into the practice. And the shift has been phenomenal. And I'm going to talk through different parts of the shift on this thing, just so everybody is on the same page. For me, the old school model has completely outdated. Calculator, pen, books and records, sheets of paper, that's all gone. And it is unprofitable now because of the event of what's happening. The good news on the workshop today, I am going to go straight through this thing and show you the shift that I made within the practice and how we've achieved it. This is the one part of it that I'm asking people that are on the webinar just to have an open mind, suspend belief. Right. So when we're talking about something here, just imagine if this is possible in your own practice. Don't say, well, I can't do that because of this. So just come with an open mind and ready just to pick up a few tips for yourselves here on this. The first thing I want to talk about, who is this for? So for me, if you're looking to secure the future of your practice without having to constantly be challenged in the practice, and we're having constant change because the next new thing is coming. AI was the last thing. We've had a number of things hit us recently in the years. If you want to double the value of your business, and I'll show you how we double the value of ours without been massively overwhelmed, and without having to look at the next new, without having to say, well, in order to do this, I have to do that. If you've tried other ways of making your practice more profitable, and let me tell you, I've tried everything. They used to call me the shiny new object, because anything that came new, I wanted it and I need to try it. And I said, this is going to work. And I was at a lot of points ready to give up and sell the practice and move and try something different. And that event changed substantially for me a couple of years ago. And I'm here to support you. I'm an accountant in practice. And a lot of these webinars I do are talking about, with respect, some fantastic other people, the like of Futrli and the like of, the like of Sage and all the other people that are trying to give value out there. But I'm looking at this as a practice owner, as opposed to a software seller. By the end of it, I'll give you the exact strategy we've used. And we've used one simple app to do this. And this is a connector. And I will talk about that. I'll give you the step-by-step process, exactly how to transform and secure the future of the practice. And you'll see, you can do this several ways, but one of the things, you can do this without having any more people to your team. And that's the reality that we've done. We've grown substantially recently without having any team members in. And this is a proven plan that has been tested in multiple practices with the acquisitions we've had. So we're just going to get into it now. We're just going to look at traditional accountancy business model. This was our model, and I would imagine a lot of people on the webinar today was the same model they used. Take on a client, gather all the details, keep them compliant. All clients were interested in was, how can I get my books and records done? How can I I'm afraid of the taxman. How can I stay away from the taxman? How can I get that part done? And that's traditionally what we all done. We filed our tax returns, and years ago when we were filing tax returns, it was pandemonium, trying to get information in. Our tax return deadline here is the October, and for online it's in November. The last 5 years, we've done no overtime, zero overtime in the practice to do tax return season. But that was a big issue for us. And the other thing is wait for next year's return and go out and search for new clients. So, and that's the way we traditionally grew the practice. I'm going to show you just a different way of doing this. And in fact, this is a slide that I wondered what I put it in, put it out, but to me, it's a true slide. So it's actually what happened. I think that all way of running is done. And I think if we don't change, I think it died in 2020. And for me, 2020 was a massive, significant area. And the reason it was insignificant was, if you look back to 2007 and 2008, and all of that era when within practices, you had a massive shift. In Ireland, the Celtic Tiger, someone shot the tiger and took him and hit him because we lost the tiger. And, businesses were under severe pressure, practices and everything were under severe pressure then. That took 7 or 8 years. Then we hit this, the next real stage of this was COVID. And for me, COVID flipped everything we do. So 1920, that area, everything stopped and we became change masters of other people's businesses. You don't believe me? This is just some stuff, some slides we picked up. The COVID outbreak, accountants didn't know where to go. But we instantaneously went back to our initial training and we helped people. That's the first thing we did. We stopped everything we had, we helped people. It completely changed the way we work. Coming up to COVID, we were afraid of our lives to actually copy something and save it on our own scenario because of GDPR, because of all the compliance stuff that was around us. Within 24 to 48 hours, we were lucky enough that the team were on laptops that were working from home. But like practices shifted straight away to working from home. That became the instantaneous thing that people could do now, which is a hybrid model, I believe, is for the rest of our lives is going to be. And I think it's going to be a massive impact on the industry moving forward and on recruitment styles and on everything. Recently, it's changed again, and the problems at the moment that we're having is recruitment. Recruitment is an absolute biggest issue. And I'd like people to interact and ask questions on this as well. And there's a chat function there or a question and answer function. So if you have been affected by recruitment in your own firm and you're struggling with recruitment, I'd ask you just for your own sake, just to put a 1 in the chat that it is an issue, there's a problem at the moment. The other big issue you see here is the compression of tax season. The compression of tax season now, as we spoke a minute ago, is people are trying to get stuff done at the very last minute. And you can't really advise clients if that's happening. There's obviously security threats, and now we have the rise of AI, which is the next big thing here. This was a big one for me personally, and this is where the personal side of this come in, burnout. In fact, I've spelt it burnout, but sure, that's part of me. You'll get unedited me, unedited you. But the point about the burnout to me was, it was a massive thing that shifted for me in my practice. And the next slide I'm going to show you is why we need to change, right? If your firm relies mostly on compliance-based work, we're going to be technology is here, lads. We can't do anything about it. Technology within the industry is here. ChatGPT started in, I think it was in December 2022, and in January. Now, I don't think there's an accountant in this whole webinar or on this whole workshop that hasn't been affected by it. It's changed the way I work personally, right? The rise of AI. Now, for me, the first experience I had with AI was, believe it or believe it not, Futrli was the first AI piece of software I ever used, with the predictive functions within the cash flow modeling. And it was clunky and it was awkward, the same as a lot of other stuff, but it really was the first version of AI. Now, every single thing I do, I have a full version of a multiple screen here, and all on that screen is AI is on it. And it does everything for me. So we're being currently replaced by that. Bookkeeping is dead, as far as I can see, but we have apps, we have everything to bring it to one. So where do we fit in? The doing the books part is something the traditional model done, but as a result of the pandemic and as a result of the way we helped our clients at that point in time, we changed the way we adopted to do work. So now clients' expectation levels, they can't go backwards. They can't go back to just doing the books. And they're expecting more from us. But the other side of this is, with the rise of technology, the rise of cryptocurrency, the rise of blockchain technologies, the rise of artificial intelligence, you can open a bank account now in the space of probably 6 minutes, 7 minutes, maybe 10 minutes at the worst. That has led to more complicated jobs for us in understanding when we're doing the books and records and when we're doing the accounts. It's a lot more difficult, and it's forcing us to use technology now that can do stuff in seconds rather than trying to be having conversations and that side of it. So that's the compliance change that's happening. Traditional accountancy is about being reactive. Clients need us to be proactive. So the proactive part of our job as leaders of the practice is something that, you know, some of us struggle with and some of us love. The bottom line is, if we don't change, we're going to be taken over by either larger firms. And this webinar to me is about the medium-sized practice that's starting, that has a practice up and running. This is not about the big four, but our competition becomes the big four. So what I'm trying to do here is to take back control, back to our own particular size practices. And at this point now, I suppose it's a little bit more if I introduce myself. As I said, I'm in this thing since 1982. I've over 40 years experience in it. The practice itself has won awards. I'm not a big award person, but the practice, and it's great for the staff and it's great for the team who are involved in that. We got Practice of the Year in 2020 with 0. And then we expanded our practice. We have 5 locations in Ireland now and a small location in the UK, although we have a bigger firm in the UK that does financial services. And me personally, I love the coaching, I love the advisory, I love working with accountants themselves on growing their own practice and helping them with their own practice. We work with a lot of our clients. There's one of our clients. And in fact, the girl in the middle receiving the award is now joining our staff, but we work with our clients and they won awards too as a result of some of the work that we were partnering with them on. So for me, as we talked about a few minutes ago, I was once a burnt out accountant that didn't really know what the next move was and what I was going to do. And here's the first picture of myself that you're going to see. And that's me on the left-hand side. And that's me after I'd done a program a number of years ago called Body Slims. But the burnout was real. The pain was real. The issue of 2007 and 2008, when we had a situation where a lot of our clients were in the construction industry, a lot of our client base was in subsidiaries or adjoining firms to construction. We lost a large part of our client base. Our debtor count went, and work in progress piled up like every other practice that was suffering there at the moment. And it was tough and it was really hard. And as well as that, then relationships within the practice with my partner were strained. So how do we move from surviving to thriving? So we worked for a number of years in the journey up to that as a compliance-based practice. We're obsessed with growing the business, but we had lockup. We'd do anything for anybody and put it into work in progress. And the problem with our work in progress was our work in progress was building to 6 months at one point in time. We were overworked, miserable and struggling, and we're struggling to keep our head above water, even though everything from the outside looked rosy. So while watching our own businesses struggle, we were watching our clients' businesses fail. Now, so something had to change and we had to do something slightly different. So I was trained as an accountant and I thought I was a service that would always be in demand. But my clients weren't happy because the fees, the Cena has a fee-based product that we were selling. We were spending a lot of time struggling to find new clients and keep the firm afloat, as we said. I literally didn't have any time to myself, so we're working way too many hours. The hours we were working was 60, the same as a lot of people on the webinar, but we're 60 hours plus working within the business at that point in time. But the biggest error was, I assumed that when I became an accountant, I was going to be a successful business owner. And being a successful business owner to me meant if I had something that was difficult, it was barriers to entry, qualifications, etc., to get in to do, that when I got in there, I was always going to be a good business. But when I looked at myself, I was a great accountant. I could do anything accounting wise or, all the technical stuff, brilliant. But I was a lousy businessman in my own business. And the time I spent running my own business didn't really portray into. Profit was no problem, making loads of money, cash was tight. But the real reality is clients don't really care how hard I'm working. They really didn't mind it. They had no issue whatsoever or no concern about my problems and my issues within my own business. And I was on the verge of really looking at the next, as we said, the next move and what would happen. And one day, everything that I believed in changed. And this was a client called Helen. Now, Helen had been an incredible client for a number of years. And I would say the people on this webinar, they all have, without saying it, our own clients that would be not necessarily our favorite clients, but the clients we interact most with. We're going to talk about that a little bit down the road on this. But Helen had, let's say she was in the top 10 favorite clients we had. She called me one day out of the blue and said she's leaving the practice. She picked up the phone at least before a letter arrived. I was dumbfounded. I was stunned. I actually didn't know how to react to this question. It's one of them situations where you get that knot in your stomach and you say, oh, how is this possible? Like, I stay ahead of everything. I'm looking in front and making sure. She was very happy with the client's work, but she felt she was paying too much for the service I would provide and would get no real advice. Now just think about that statement. She was happy with the compliance work, but she felt she was paying too much for the service and was getting no real advice on the business. The scary part was she didn't really know what she wanted. She didn't know the advice that she was looking for, and she was struggling to protect herself in the business. And she didn't ask for help because she didn't know where to go for help, or she didn't know how to ask for help. And she wasn't even sure what she wanted in the end of the day. So we made the shift. We actually decided we were going to sit down because we knew each other. We weren't friends, but we were acquaintances that we had for a long, long time. So we became, business friends, or football friends, if anyone watched the famous program on TV. But when we sat down and talked, we analysed her business and we just chatted, sat down, had a cup of coffee. I went down to her house. We chatted for hours, talking about the business and how the whole thing was going on. And just by having that conversation, I found so many opportunities for her in the business to do stuff. Within an hour, I'd found 3 years worth of fee savings for her. We actually found a particular, and I have full authority, obviously, to tell this story, but we found a particular policy that had been charged by an insurance company for somebody else. and it amounted to several €1,000, and she bought a pair of diamond earrings. And every time she comes in, she goes, look at my earrings. Do you like my diamond earrings? And that became the diamond earring story. But for me, as I said, I found areas for her to protect herself and her business and change how she worked in the business. On the day, while instead of leaving the practice, she signed up, which doubled her fee straight away as a client of the practice. And many years later now, and actually at this point in time, her and her family are getting ready to retire from a business that was going since 1884. They're the third generation in the business. And she is my biggest proponent and the biggest person to refer people for me, because she's a raving fan. So what next? How did I adapt this situation into the next part? And how did I move this situation into something that was changing within the practice? So now I had a new idea, shiny new object, had a new concept of how this was going to work. So I began rolling it out to all the clients, on the phone with clients, loved this service. This was brilliant. Profitability started skyrocketing, money started coming in. But there was a little problem that I was facing, and I'll talk about that further. But here's what the new firm looked like. We'd one simple app, as we said, to make compliance faster and more easy. The firm had changed. We became the person clients call for all their major financial decisions. Now that number 2 there, that part, if every accountant on this just takes one piece of advice out of this whole workshop and actually becomes the person the clients contact for all their major decisions, give them your phone number, give them your contact details. If somebody is ringing you, they're ringing you for a particular reason. Now, how you handle that call and how you handle that down the line is a completely different scenario now than you'll handle it, you know, in a particular situation. It could be for bookkeeping, so you'll bring it onto your team. But this major decision thing was, for me, was the crux of it. So I became like the doctor in a general practice, and I became the person that was one step ahead of the client. We call this being a trusted advisor. It's the single biggest innovation in our practice and profession, and it was a unique way, for us to grow our own practice. But that uniqueness came with its own issues and problems. So where we're using technology, we dramatically increase the value of clients. So if we take a seriously look, the reality on this was, there's only 3 ways to grow any firm or any business, as a matter of fact, in that. There's no other ways. There's 3 simple ways of growing a firm. And prior to growing that, people only buy for 2 reasons. They have an urgent pain or an unfulfilled desire. They buy for 2 reasons. There's 3 ways of growing your business. You get more clients, which was the process that I was looking at forever in my own journey. I was more clients, more people, more clients, more clients. You increase the fees, which on a fee-based business is really, really hard, because the pressure now with AI and with technology, fees are coming down for compliance. Or you sell more to your existing client. And they're the only 3 ways. This area with the trusted advisory side of it, and it's a well-worn used 2 words, but if it's really built into what you truly believe, those 2 words are actually very, very powerful. But firms who continually to do a trusted advisor role, we make more profit now than we've ever done. And the profit per client is massively increasing. Why is this different? Because for me, trusted advisory services, add-on services, there's so many different names or connotations for this whole. I don't like the word advisory services because nobody understands it and the clients don't understand it. But I look now as compliance as a foot in the door to build a relationship with the client, right? Just imagine you have a client and there's 4 or 5 different areas of their business. They have a startup model, they have different sides of this model. But if you get in your foot in the door and they truly trust you, you've opened the door for everything that they need in the firm. So what we do is we assess exactly. I have a conversation, or some of my partners have a conversation with when the client comes in first, and we figure out what they're looking for. So, as I said, we understand that making real profit, we have to offer complementary products. We have to build the back end of our own service. So compliance is one. So we start looking at building the back. We think strategically. We work educating our clients, each client, one client at a time. We use technology to automate traditional services. Now, for us, technology is the is the core part of what we offer. But if you're sitting with a client, and I would say every single partner and leader of a firm that's here is sitting with the client and can spot the problem in the client's business. And they can sit with that client and know the problem that's coming down the road at that client. And they don't talk to the client about that problem because it's not in their letter of engagement or a scope creep, or it's not in what we want to do because they're afraid of selling. I personally believe that that's wrong. And I think having that conversation, I'm not an expert in every single area, but I am an expert in businesses and I am an expert in how to work because I've spent so many years in accounting. And I will say that 80 to 90% of the people on this are experts as well. You're actually doing the client a massive disservice, but not only you're doing a disservice, clients are more happy. Clients don't care what I charge at the moment. They're really paying clients, and the issue of fees has not anymore become an issue for us because the long-term value for us of the client is staggering. And the long-term value, the real value for a client is staggering. So now we're the trusted advisor. That's the advisory relationship we're talking about creating, but we're not just the accountant. You know, we're the person that really, the client says, well, if my accountant says I can do this, I can do this. Or if my accountant talks to me about this side of it, I can really and truly, this is going to be okay. But here's the nice thing about being a trusted advisor. The numbers don't lie. No matter what you look at, if we're just talking about doubling the value of your practice, the numbers don't lie. So you take an average client that's paying you for compliance, they're giving you £1,000 a year, €1,000, £1,000, it doesn't really matter. You provide the trusted advisory services to them, everything the client needs. One client, one service, £1,000, right? One client with trusted advisory services on top of it, and their annual recurring fees, that's £2,000. £2,000 recurring or €2,000 recurring. We have bought a number of practices. We've helped clients buy practices, but the practices are being bought and sold at the moment in the UK, in Ireland, around, not sure about the rest of the world, but Ireland and the UK for somewhere around 80 pence to 120. If you average that, recurring income is £1 per client for recurring income. You double the value of the practice, that's gone from £1,000 to £2,000. So you've 2,000 in value, you've doubled the value of the practice. And that was the whole concept. The simplicity of this webinar is doubling the value of your fees and doubling the value of your practice. But you just repeat the process, one client at a time, one product at a time. So what we do is we show you how to plug services in to this, and we call this journey the Pathfinder. So, and to simplify it, I'm going to go through it here now. The big problem, let me take a step back, is when we talked about the Helen story and me bringing clients into the practice and me growing the practice through that basis, I committed to calling the clients. And this is a problem with, this is the big problem. I found I could do over 80% the things that they wanted to, the service, but I never sold the service to the client. I kept it a secret. Like the clients didn't really know that I would go to a bank and sit with the bank and prepare bank applications. They didn't understand that because I didn't tell them. They didn't understand that if they wanted to do monthly cash flows or profit and loss accounts and the benefit of sitting with somebody and talking to them, these were services that we thought just everybody knew about. We brought in thousands and thousands on the basis of just starting to add advisory services, simple ones, not difficult, not complicated, not massive other informational services, just simple advisory services to the client. But there was a big problem with this, all of this success. I burned out again. Trying to offer this world-class service to my own clients, because the people here, I would like you just to put a 2 into the chat. If you take on a new service and then you're the one that's expected to actually deliver the service in the practice. So if you decide that you're going to add this new service, it kind of comes down to the leader and the owner of the practice to put that thing in. I needed to change the way it was working. Not the team. This is the realization I had. Not the team. The team were flying. The team were working. And the team were working harder and brilliant. But it was me that needed to change. So the fact that I knew, when I recognized that I was the problem and that I had to solve the problem with the solution. So I found a completely new way to change the way I worked as the practice owner. But in order to do this, one of the things I had to do this was I had to go back to the future, as Marty McFly says. And when I go back to the future, I'm just going to digress. This is a picture, and this is the picture that stuck in my head when I decided to change. This is a picture, on the right-hand side is my great-grandmother, and on the left-hand side is my grandmother, right? So that's my great-grandmother, my grandmother, my parents, myself, and potentially next generation is working outside. Whether he comes into the business or not, I don't know. But when I looked at that whole concept of generational businesses, what we did was different. But my grandmother was back in the late 20s in Ireland, maybe the 30s. If you see the name is Bernie Ann Redmond, this was a lady, an incredibly strong lady that had her maiden name on a shop in a village, a local village in Ferns. She was the first person to take in the UK papers in her own village. She was a change master in the village. And I remember that plaque on the wall on the left-hand side. That plaque on the wall was actually registered the deaths, births, and marriages in the village. There was a big book on the counter. Could you imagine now? This massive big book on the counter. And if you looked at it, you got a clip around the ear. You weren't even allowed to walk by the book. But this was the side of this. So they were, so what made the business owners last and what made that business work? For me, it's a thing that I came across called the culture code. Now, the culture code comes from you, again, from your inheritance and your background. And that culture code for me when I realized what it was. So why is my practice different than John or Mary's practice or Michael's practice down the road? What makes, we all are trained the same way. We all adopt the same set of skills and the same set of, we're bound by the same rules and regulations as accountants and bookkeepers, right? So why is one practice different from the other? And to me, it's all down to culture. And I read something recently that one of the speakers wrote about the human farm. There was a great book that was written recently about the human farm. But to me, the difference that makes the difference is the culture. So within my family, I was brought up with a certain type of culture, the same as everyone else was. And for me, when I look back on that and said as a leader of the practice, that this job of going out and helping people, so I sat down and I said, what is the culture code that we're trying to build within our own organization? And there's a number of things we do in that to build a culture code. And we're now getting into the kind of the detail of this. But for me, the best exercise that I ever came across, right, was an exercise called the core value exercise. Now, when I sat down and I looked at the culture and I looked at the family history and I looked at the way I wanted to run my business, and I started off, like, when people remember starting out in practice here, they remember the excitement of starting out in that practice, and they remember this wound up pent of excitement when you're starting something new and you have a new business. And they had the culture code sorted at that time, but it gets lost. So it gets lost, and it got lost for me in growing the business and in the day-to-day. Like the business, as I said at that time, no, it's been fantastic times in the business, well, and it's something I love, and I never retire because I love doing what I do. But imagine a day that came problem, crisis. How many people have had that? Problem, crisis. So for me, it was making, the crisis into problems and the problems into opportunities. So the core exercise changed everything about the way I want to work the practice. So we have 4 particular core values: honesty, trust, respect, and teamwork. Now, I have some questions, but if people would like to put a problem that they have into the chat, type it into the question and answer, any problem they have, and I can show them how to solve it with a very simple culture code. But a couple of the questions that came in prior to this were, how do I actually know that I have the right clients in the practice? And how do I know that the practice is building the practice based on client A or client B? Well, for me, if I take the Helen story and I adopt the culture code or the core values to the Helen story, I have to ask myself in those, 1, were we honest in the way we were working with Helen insofar as did we tell her everything we did? Yes, in my interpretation of that. In Helen's, she found us very honest and no issue, and she trusted us, right? But she respected that the fees we were charging her were too high, right? And we didn't work as a team. Now, you get away with a problem with one of the core values being different from your clients. But we're not trying to build a client that's giving us £500. We're trying to build a client that's giving us £5,000 upwards, right? So you have to have the clients that get what you tried to do. And that's what makes the difference, that makes the difference. So in terms of Helen, she respected what we'd done with the teamwork. When we sat down and had that conversation, we realized that the 4 values were exactly the same. without actually using the words that time because I didn't know what they were. But when I look back on it, I now understand. When I look at working with Sage or with Xero or with any of my providers out there, the difference for me, the ones that I get on so well with have the same core values. So I'm with Futrli since I was Crunchboards, going back way back. And at that point in time, I met the team at our first XeroCon somewhere in the centre of London. I don't know where it was. And we kind of rolled out, we had a conversation, and we just knew that what we were trying to do together was right. And now my team know what I'm trying to do together is right. If I look at the last number of people that left our practice, and I ask myself, was the culture the same? Was the values the same with the people that leave the practice? I dare anybody on this to pick a staff member that's left or a team member that's left their business and ask them based on their own. Now, they're my values. Somebody else will have different values. But do they portray the same values? And the people you get on best with will have the same values. So how does that work in business? So how do we as practice owners take this culture code, implement it simply within our own business and make it work for us? Because you go back and you talk about it and you figure out, and we have a way of doing that. But in order to do that, we have to have a plan. So Chris is on the other end of the call here, and one of my colleagues, Callum, is on holidays. But picture the scene. Pick anybody that you have the last time you went on holiday. So imagine the scene at home. You're sitting at home and you say to your partner, we're going to go on holidays in 3 weeks' time. Everyone gets excited. You check your passports, make sure they're in date. You don't even know. You check your passport. Yeah, passport is in date. You go out and buy the new clothes, the holiday clothes, till you go abroad or wherever you're going. They're for nothing out there, so you're sorry you didn't bring an empty bag. You then get excited. Work then becomes this thing where you have to do 3 weeks work into 1 week to get away for a week, which makes no logical sense. But anyway, that's what happens in the journey. And the night before, then you don't sleep. Everyone gets up in the morning, right? And we all get into the car, and you sit in the car, and your partner turns to you and says, where are we going? You say, I haven't a clue. You're going to, what do you mean? We're 3 weeks planning this. We have a journey ahead of us, and you really don't know where you're going. I said, how does that make any logical sense in the wider world if you have a plan of action, but you don't know where you're going? Now that, to me, makes, when I say it out loud, it means it's ridiculous. So why in a practice, if I get up in my practice and I run my business and I don't know where I'm going, I've no destination. So we're now starting to get this Pathfinders role together. So we start looking at core values. We're looking at the journey and we're looking at where we want to get to. And for me, this one chart depicts everything that's in business. And this, that we have 5 stages of any particular area in a business. So we have the creation and the startup stage. We have the chaos stage where we get started up, we're trying to get our first clients and get money in the bank account and just start a business and just start pushing this thing out. And when we do that, we move eventually from that to the control stage where this is nice. We've taken on our first employees. We're getting really good. Now we're starting to grow, right? And the business is starting just to get a bit of profitability. And we're considering a new office or more staff or taking on more clients. And we get to the end of that and we retire or sell the business or we harvest or whatever stage you want to call it. But they're the 5 stages that are in every practice, every business. The problem that we have is when we move from the harvest stage and we hit a problem, like the global financial crisis, like the pandemic, like AI, like what's coming down at us, and everybody here, I don't know what day it is today, but sustainability is coming at us in the background is harder than anybody even considers. And we can be the people in that makes the big difference as well. But in the likes of the COVID, we dropped from maybe the growth stage to the freedom stage back down to chaos. So how do we get out of chaos and how do we move again? So every particular practice on this is at one of those 5 stages. But we want to know that how do we shift from stage to stage without the pressure of the practice coming under major problem or the issue of us coming under major issues. And what we're trying to figure out is which step are you focused on within your own practice. So in my practice today, I'm at the growth stage. Tomorrow, we could be at the chaos stage where we need team members or wherever it is. But you need to ask yourselves which stage are you focused on in your own practice. So to do that, we had to go again back to basics. And we had to say at that point in time, what do I do? How do I get back and how do I start taking control? The reason I want to know how I'm taking control is because when we hit a crisis, we have to be able to shift and change. And we have to come out of that crisis as the leaders. And remember, the responsibility is on me to lead my own practice. So I have to say, how can I lead my practice out of change? And that's the only role I have. The only role I have in my practice is to serve my team and serve my clients. There's no ego. If you take that leadership role and look at the likes of Simon Sinek asked, define your why, there's some fantastic people out there. You look at any of the other great leaders that are out there, they're always asking that same question. How can I help, or how can I grow, and how can I lead this team? Because eventually I'm going to move out of this practice and somebody else is going to move in, but I want to leave this legacy. And I want to leave a legacy of this concept of 100-year practice. So what is a 100-year practice? And how can you leave the business? It doesn't matter. None of us are going to be around here in practice for 100 years. But if you build it for a 100-year term, and the concept of that, you slow it down. You slow everything back down to the stage where you say, I don't know, we'll pull back here now and we'll regroup and we'll relook at this. But if you've defined the values, you know where you're stuck. If you have the chart, you know where your business is stuck. And if you have the ideas that you're doing, then you can say, well, this is where I'm going to move now and this is how I'm going to change. So the three big questions, very, very simple questions. Where are you now? Second question is, where are you going? So what's the destination? And the third question is, how do you get there? Right? And where does an accountant today turn to? So where do they turn to for help when they're under pressure? Who helps accountants in practice when they're like doctors, his own worst patient? Who helps the accountant? The accountant is seen, like when COVID came, we were the change masters in this industry. We were the people in the industry that changed everything. Everybody trusted us. Everybody looked to us to help. And we did help. We kept more businesses going. There's how many people are on this webinar, but every accountant in this was responsible for keeping businesses going and had an impact on the lives of the people that are in those businesses, right? It's okay to make money doing this as well. Don't forget that we're happy to make money at this point, at this as well. So how do you get there? We always start with a very, very detailed plan. We do a one-page strategic plan. There's loads of versions of this, but we sit down and we plan out our organization together on the day, 1 year into that plan. And once we set that plan in motion, it's just a picture and the destination is going to look different, but it gives us that lights ahead of ourselves. We're not in the car. If we know in 10 years time, we want to receive X, Y, or Z, and you're driving at nighttime, your lights are on. You can only see it 200 meters ahead of you with the lights on at nighttime, but you know the destination. And that's all it is. It's a compass for the leaders of the practice to stay on the path and stay on the road. The good news in doing this for your own practice, it's now possible to do that with your own team, make the same shift in your own firm, offer the same services to your clients. It's really possible. People are going to say, well, Paul is on this and Paul doesn't do these things for nothing. And Sage are on this and everybody in this is in this for something. But I debated saying this and I debated telling this, but I'm going to tell this part of the story now as well, which is a very human part of the story for me. For me, in this, so I'll just go to the cost of doing this is tiny, right? And the gain is huge. But what do I mean? How do I quantify that? Well, for me, quantifying that, as I said, there's certain things that happened in my own business. And in the last 12 months, we do a thing here within our own practice is that every January, in every single year, we send everybody off for a routine blood check as part of the health and wellness program. And as well as that, we've now moved to changing times for working. We've I don't know what you call it, whatever the name of it is, but they can shift their times of core hours and they can work certain hours. Major impact in the firm, major boost in just staff well-being. Whatever they went for a blood test, and as I came back, my own bloods came back. My own bloods were outside, and I ended up getting prostate cancer. Another event that happened through the burn, not through any reason, but it was just a routine blood test. I got a second opinion, and that thing saved my life, right? But the thing is, the rewards where I am doing, I love this. This is what I was put on this earth to do. And for me, I do believe that accountants, if they get the slightest push and edge in the right direction, that can have a massive resulting reward. So for me, the reward for this to me is that I'm actually spending time doing the things that I love to do. So how do you put this into your own firm based on what we talked, right? So you review your clients' businesses and you identify the gaps. And everybody has their own particular methodologies in doing this. right? You connect your clients with your team. You can do it with our team or your team, and you actually sit down and have conversations with your clients about, here's where we do this, here's the next thing, here's what we're going to implement X, Y, or Z. But there's a way, and there's a way that we done it that was successful for us, and I do believe that will be successful for the accountants that are on this as well. So you can speak to your clients or get their team to speak to your clients, but it's a matter of having a simple methodology of a fact find within your own business to speak to your clients to figure out what they need. And their needs are, go back to that chart, go back to that table and define what you need, define your level of services that you're going to offer. As I said, you have an obligation to protect your clients and ensure their education and give them access to the services you want. You'll immediately increase the value. Once you sit down with your client, and God gave us all the same things. He gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? And the reason he gave us that is to listen twice. So, and that's the part, as being an Irishman, I struggle very much with. I like talking. I don't, I'm not the world's best listener, as Chris will know. But if you sit down and talk to your client and listen, and look at the journey that you've had and look at your areas and your expertise, everything is going to flow out. You know exactly what that client needs. And it's only a matter of talking to them. We don't, as I said, we don't have to deliver the services, but we do have to have conversations with our clients. You'll have a way to bring in multiple streams of income in multiple different areas. And you do this, it's really effective. So you can sit down, and I'm going to show you, give you an example of how much money we got off the last 3 clients we served and what we done for them. And you won't need more clients because you look for the gold dust where it already is inside your own client base. Remember, if you have a client that's £500 or €500, you can treble and quadruple the value of that client. The lifetime value of a client to a practice that's offering more or less a full range of services is well over 60, 70, 80,000 per client. Now, how much time would you spend with somebody if you looked at the lifetime value of them and thought they were going to get 70, 80, up to 100 grand off each person? You'd actually be down at their home every night making sure they were tucked into bed. That's what you'd be doing. A lot of people would be doing. But for me, it's a matter of saying to ourselves, how can we service these clients in the context of what we're trying to do? And forget about going outside the base for a minute. Just go inside first and maximize that value, because they'll sell your services afterwards. Now, here's the big thing. Everybody sits here, this is going to be too hard to implement. No, that's not the truth. It's simple. I've got to figure out new technical software. That's not the case. No. I've got to become a business and life coach. Nope, you don't. I've got to take I'm going to take years to profit from this thing. No, you'll profit straight away from it, both in financial and in mental. You will profit in every single way you can from it. My clients won't be on board. They don't want the advice. That is categorically wrong. They're crying out for help. They cried out for help during the pandemic. They cried out for help in every area. They just have to recognize that you're the person that's going to give them. So let's run through how we're going to multiply the profitability. Let's say we start offering a range of services. These are simple ones. Expanded bookkeeping services. Everybody is running from this. And as Warren Buffett says, when everybody is running, run towards it. When everybody else is running away from it. This in itself will give you the best return if you do this right and do a profit. And try and find a bookkeeper at the moment anywhere. They're like hen's teeth. They're just not out there, right? They're scarce. There's no out there. Outsourced financial services. That's what my other business does in the UK as well. We offer outsourced financial services to accountants in practice in the UK and in Ireland. Payroll services. Our biggest rate of growth in services in the practice is payroll services. At the moment, we cannot. Every client that we have is looking to, I won't say every client, but a huge number of clients when you sit down and talk to them. And payroll services, there's a profitable way of doing it, and there's a pricing mechanism you can do it. There's 2 or 3, and I can talk to people about that, payroll services. But that's a service that's done, and you charge for a weekly or monthly, and you get paid weekly or monthly. You get paid when they get paid. They're the simple, real simple ones. Tax planning, right? A lot of accountants are afraid of tax planning. Get a real good advisor, financial advisor that can do the majority of that. You can do the basic stuff, and you can build partners into your firm. And that's a fantastic way of success. Remember, there's 2 ways. Your clients are going to stay with you for the longevity because they're second generation, which or whatever, just like you. There's clients that are wanting to grow, and they're going to, if you don't give them the service, they're going to go on to TikTok to find some fella telling them how to pay off their mortgage. They're either going to go on somewhere and find these people. So if you're not talking to your clients about how to grow and how to protect themselves, somebody else is. So what we're trying to do here is build a community, which is one of the things I'm looking to do, is build a community of accountants that can actually protect themselves and stop us losing clients to the bigger firms and leave something in it for everybody. And these services are highly, highly profitable. The rates per hour are staggering compared to what some people are charging. Next, we move to the dreaded advisory services that everybody talks about. This is where we really start to build with integrity. If you're doing advisory services for your client, and for me, I have a real simple definition on this. Compliance starts and looks backwards. Advisory starts and looks forwards. Simplest definition I ever heard, right? You're advising something's going to happen in the future. Strategic planning, what I'm talking about doing with you guys, you do that with your clients. When you get a handle on this and you'll have it in one meeting, one full day, you'll have this service to go back and offer to your clients. Wealth management, profit maximizer toolkits. There's so many different things, profit plus programs, people plus, a wide more service, but the range of services are virtually the same. It's only how you pitch them to your clients is the only difference in it. The value of these clients now, on average, a real slow average for this is £2,000, right? For you sit down and do a strategic plan with a client and do a full, that's a minimum £2,000 all day long, right? And it's done at the end of conversation based for the clients. And the clients can sit down and see today how much tax they have to pay from today with some of the tools we use. From today till the day, they'll know the tax, right? Brilliant little piece of software. Now that's 2,000 average in profit, right? We've experienced a 653% bottom line increase since we shifted our model completely. And only for my own institute are reluctant to let me, I would do compliance for free. I charge. I think the first practice to really start that is we're not charging for compliance services, we'll corner the market. If you have 400 clients, right, and you successfully advise 100 of them to purchase these services, and you don't personally have to deliver all of them or some of them or whatever you want to deliver, and you simply connect and advise, that's a real good way of doing it with partnerships, but having proper partners, right? You can advise your client. So the client is always with me. Go back to think of the doctor, the general practitioner. I'm sitting here as a general practitioner and I'm talking to the client, but I also have a tax advisor sitting with me, but I'm on the client side of the table, not the tax advisor side. So I'm interpreting what they're saying and we're building a plan together. Or I'm sitting with the client with our financial advisor and I'm saying to the client, here's the plan that we need to action. What do you think it is? You know, if you die today, you have no money to cover your family, you have no money, like it's fairly basic, simple stuff. I witnessed that when I went through my own journey, right? In terms of having proper protection in place. This is the next level. They're talking about Web 3.0, but this is accountancy 3.0. It's the simplest model of accounting of all times. You can dramatically reduce the time and still keep your clients happy with one simple app. We use one simple app, right? And we're going to outline the process. Now, you don't need lots of different softwares. You don't need new members. You don't need, this is what I realized. You can transform your business. For us, it transformed with one app. And it's a very simple reason. Chris is getting a panic attack because he wonders what app I'm going to mention to you or what app I'm going to mention. But I'll give my honest opinion on what app I believe done this. You don't need to add to your team. This was the staggering part for me. You can redeploy the team. It's not nearly as complex as you might think. And we can 100% transform our practice without putting everything on the line, because we have to do this without risk, right? So what I did now, this is what I wanted, but what I didn't want was any more new software. If I brought new software into the firm, they were going to kill me. Stop, we're not taking it on. This is a bane of my life, and maybe it's just me personally, but the last number of events, and I'm not sure, I think I have a slide coming up on this and I'll wait for that. But when I went, the last events I went to was Accountex, Xerocon, I don't know, there was a Digital Accountancy Show and Accountex were the last 4 big events I went to. And you've gone to too many of these when you walk around and all the software providers saying, not all of them, but a lot of them said, hello, Paul, I'll see you after for a drink. And you're at all these same events and you're meeting the same people. And I keep saying to them, you go up in this new piece of software or a staggering old piece of software, and they keep saying, you know, wait till I show you what this does. Wait till you see how your clients love this. And I keep saying, it's not about my clients. It's about me. So what's the app? What can your app and your piece of software do for me, for my practice and my team? So whatever we're talking about, looking at here and trying to use here and trying to do, this has to be successful, 100% successful in your own practice, unless it's a construction piece of software, obviously. But you have to get this right in your own firm first, before you go anywhere else with it. Because if you have a right in your own firm and running properly in your own firm, then it doesn't become a sell. Then you say, lads, you need this, you have to have this, put this into your practice. This is the end of this. This is not a conversation. This is part of what we do. So looking at it from the practice point of view, instead of looking at it from the software's point of view. Obviously, the app that I'm talking about is Futrli. And there's a reason I'm saying that, and it's not because I'm on this webinar that I'm saying this, but there is a reason, and I'll tell you why. Really simple. We talked about the core value exercises, and they have the same core values. Everything is not 100% working properly because, and the reason it's not working properly is because they're forever improving. So everything gets to improving. They have the same core values. These were talked about the last events I went to. They're all the same for me, software showcases with a tweak, and this is no disrespect to any of these. And some of the speakers on these things are just phenomenal, right? And they're so far ahead of their game. And all these speakers, but the essence of the show is a selling a software show. It's not a show. And that was no more evident to me than the digital accounts show when everyone's going around with headphones on them and you couldn't hear what was going on. I was like walking into the Silence of the Lambs or something. It was just, what's going on here? But Futrli gave me an opportunity to completely automate the advisory arm of the business, the connector that I needed to connect advisory with advisory with compliance services. Now I could focus on advisory because they were taking care of it for me. I didn't have to work more hours. I was working less than ever before on the particular service I was trying to deliver. The data I got from Futrli gave me infinitely was more valuable advice to my clients because it was real time. And it worked today on the, you know, the minute I put Futrli in, took the client's live data, I could do what I like with it. That finished the confusion in the office. Who's going to deliver this? It wasn't down to me to deliver. We connected the software, created the boards, and the software delivered it. So you don't have to be techie to do this. There's a team of people there. I want that board, lads. Help you. Get me that board set up. Just show me what to do. Not that disrespectful, but help me with this board. So now, what's the offer and where are we coming to and what are we saying about this? What I'm saying to you people here is that working with Sage Futrli and myself, I can build this thing for your practice in one day, right? Now, why go figure all this out when you can plug into a proven process? So you can do it yourself, or you can get some help with doing this for me. But wait, before we go here, right? You might be wondering, and I create in competition with myself. There is, at the moment, at last count, I think there's 30,000 accountancy practices in the UK and rising, right? We can't handle the amount of work we're getting at the minute because we're trying to build another team around this. So it's not competition for myself. But it did help me win Practice of the Year, having this software stack that I have. The last 3 fees we signed up, 25 grand each. A basic, fully outsourced CFO service for our clients and rising. 25,000 and rising. The last one we called the other day was 36,000. What do we do for that? We do bookkeeping, management accounts on a monthly, bi-monthly or quarterly basis, depending. A meeting with the clients to talk about the information, which is a real journey it is. We build boards for the clients that they can see their information live, which is the difference that makes the difference. We can have a board designed. If a client wants to look at the cost of toilet rolls to sales, we can design a board to do that when we have the information. So clients look at the information themselves in a completely different way than we look at it. We look at it technically from a tax return perspective. They want to look at it in their own way. This is why this makes the difference. Why? Because it's different and we're different and we look at this differently. There's no one else presenting information to their clients like we're presenting because it's the way the clients want it. It's not the way I want it. And I've said that time and time again. Futrli allows me to do that and the clients love it. For me, I built this business now And it's multiple, well, it's actually multiple seven-figure this year we're hitting for the first time ever. So for us, we're on the journey where we've got to the point, and it just happened. I don't know. We went from here to there, and we're sitting back looking, saying, how did this really happen? A lot of hard work and a lot of trial and error, which is why I do believe that sitting down with practice owners and helping them. This was my journey. So the journey on the left, as I talked about, that's the journey of me being 21 stone weight and stopping weighing myself and ending up that I wouldn't have been here around today, right? And the journey on the left is 5 years ago when I finished 3 marathons in 3 days, right? So the practice allows me to do this stuff. No, I wasn't the fastest in the world. I was like the tortoise in the hare, but I got there, right? And it's not about the speed of the journey. It's about the destination of the journey. My only question for ye that are on this, if you had a way to do this, would you go all in on it, right? And what I mean all in is I mean 100% as a leader of the practice, get a crystal clear plan for yourself, for the practice, to help your practice, not anybody else's, one-on-one or one on a group together. I can assure you that's possible. And I can assure you I've done it before, and I've done it for the practices that we bought. Previously, we said the cost of doing it was tiny, and the gain was huge. But what is the cost? Chris is wondering what I'm going to come up with now again, right? He knows the answer. I'm only joking. The cost of this is time, and it's the one thing that we all have the exact same amount of. Together, the Sage team and myself we're going to put on a one-day workshop. We're looking to see what the interest in is today. But that one-day workshop, we're going to do it in London, right? There is no cost to the people, only their own travel cost to get there, right? So, and at the end of that day, I can categorically tell you that you will come out with a plan that's absolutely designed towards your business. The plan that you have for your business will be operational from the second you walk out of that practice. And the minute you walk out of practice, you'll be able to implement that plan in your business the next day, right? It's being held in London, I believe. The dates and that will come back. But what I'm asking people to do here is, if you are interested in an in-person plan, just put 3 in the chat now. When you put in that chat, just put, yes, I'm interested. Put the number 3 into the chat, and I see where the interest is coming from people who are there, or into the questions and answers. And we're also going to potentially, if the interest is there, do an online one. But the presence of coming face-to-face and sitting down in there and doing this face-to-face is extremely a lot more valuable than doing it online, because you're able to read the room, and together as a group of people, we're able to actually work and benefit from everyone else's knowledge in this. So I would like to now hand back to Chris and open it to sorry, just have to clear out. There's something gone here now.
Yeah, thank you, Paul.
Sorry, now just questions and answers have come up.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, thank you, Paul. I think there was some real valuable content there, and hopefully educational as well. And obviously the event, there was a couple of answers in the chat as well. If there is any other questions and answers, feel free to filter them into the chat now. But thank you, Paul. That was a really, really interesting insight. I know I've seen it before, but it's always good to hear it again. And yeah, I think what you're doing and allowing the confidence, I think, with your passion there is really steering not only your practice, but what you're trying to achieve and help others with as well. So really valuable session.
There is some questions come in here. Andre has put in, what type of clients industry do you see having the most appetite for advisory services? It's very simple, Andreas. People are wanting to grow their business, and it's any type of client. And it's not defined to a supermarket or a shop or a particular online business, defined to a business owner that's wanting to grow their business. So it is really, 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 really imperative that the client wants to grow the business. But in order to grow the business, you have to show them how to do that. That's the real part of that. And the other side of this, if you actually, we'll have a pre-day kind of a webinar a little bit to prepare yourselves. Because if you come prepared for that day, right, by preparing yourself for that day properly, the day will be a lot more. So there's a number of people that put the answers in that they are interested in. So we will let the Sage team take that to the next level and see how they want to progress this forward. But thank you for everybody who has come on, and thank you for your patience and attendees and listening to me spout on for a little over an hour.
Perfect. Again, thank you, Paul, for doing that. There will be obviously a follow-up from ourselves there in regards to what Paul mentioned there in terms of the opportunity to meet in London or virtual, and also if you'd like to see a demo Futrli and sort of how it works and sort of be part of that process which Paul's talked about, then obviously feel free to contact us. We're happy to help in that respect.
Well, if you reach out to the people who are interested, and then if they want to reach out to me personally, so I will offer that here on the webinar today. If anybody wants to reach out to me personally as well, I will actually help them personally and give them an hour's coaching or whatever they need, a call personally on their own practice prior to going to meet, because I think I want to get people together to meet, because I want to get a group of people that are interested in growing their practice. So if you're really serious about growth, I know there's no tire kickers. You have to be serious about growing and serious about doing it in a way for yourself that's sustainable and that's modern and that's lively. Because I want to learn off the people that are there as well as the people learning off me. So like every time I go somewhere, I learn off the people, and there's some incredible people that are accountants. And together, if we all learn, so we're all going to make more money, and then we can be the change masters.
Yeah, well, a very generous offer, I would say, Paul. Very generous offer.
In there.
Let's have a look. What do we got?
Okay.
Copies of slides. Yes, we'll follow up with those slides, and obviously the recording as well. That'll be available shortly after we finish here. But I think that's all the answers. All the questions answered, Paul.
Yeah.
So if there's no more on here, again, thanks, Paul, for joining us. We'll share the content afterwards, and we'll see you again shortly.
Thank you. Talk to you shortly, everybody. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye bye.